Yes, guys, what you're saying. So my name's Tom. I am going to share a quick bit of advice today in this video about how to actually quit porn for good. So if you're anything like me, you've probably been trying to quit for a little while now, and you've probably been doing well. You've probably made some progress, maybe got longer and longer streaks, and you're kind of moving in the right direction, but then you're relapsing. And if you are in that position, like I was for about 10 years, going on longer and longer streaks, then you're probably just wanting to quit now, permanently quit and free yourself up to focus on other things so you don't have to ever worry about relapsing again. And that's what this channel is all about. It's about gaining permanent mental freedom from this porn addiction. So what I'll just share very quickly is how we actually do that. And the number one thing I'm just getting across in the moment on this channel is to stop worrying about triggers and start to focus on dealing with urges in healthier, more effective ways. The reason for this is quite simple, really. It's to do with neuroplasticity. So in the brain, what happens is when you're looking at porn, your brain's like creating a map that associates the orgasm, like this huge evolutionary reward, with a screen. And so imagine you have two maps, and one map's like your sort of sexual stuff going on, it's about like getting an orgasm. And then another map, which is every time like you look at a screen and you're looking at porn. So over time, like those two maps kind of like fuse together in your brain, and the neurons get connected. When neurons fire together, they wire together. And so essentially what's going on is like whatever you're looking at in the past is actually going to create really strong cravings because it's associated with an orgasm now. And so what we want to do is like break those two maps apart. Like imagine you've got these two maps, like they're really close together and they're like stuck in your brain. So that every time you see something sexual, this like craving just goes like crazy, like super intense. Or it might not be like seeing something sexual. It could just be like you're stressed, you're tired, hungover, lonely, anxious. So like when that sort of trigger takes place in your brain, that's now become associated with like looking at sexual content and this orgasm. So we want to like make it so that this trigger here is detached from the behaviour of engaging in this compulsive behaviour of looking at porn. So we want to like break these two things apart. Now, what most people do is like they look at the trigger and like let's say it's loneliness, stress, anxiety, or it's just seeing something on Instagram like some fit girl, and they're just trying to get rid of this trigger entirely. So like removing that from their life, maybe go to therapy, deal with those emotions and feelings, maybe delete social media, put some blockers in place. So they're just trying to get rid of this trigger. But that map in your brain, like say you got like these two maps in your brain, they're still going to stay here. It's just like this trigger's not being activated. So it's like going away for a little while. But then you could go a few months and feel really good, really confident because you've not had a relapse in ages. But then if the trigger suddenly comes back up, because it's still wired with these neurons here, you're just going to end up relapsing again. And then this is what happens is the maps are still together in your brain because you've not actually had this trigger without the relapse. These two things like connected. So what we want to do is actually not avoid our triggers. If the trigger keeps on coming up like once a week and like you see something sexual, I'm not talking about like going and finding that content purposefully, but I'm saying don't try and avoid the triggers. Just do what you usually do in your life. We want to be just free. Like we want to be focusing on the life we actually want instead of trying to like avoid the triggers all the time. So just live your life. And then if the trigger comes up, you just want to have a plan for dealing with it. Because if you have the urge and you say no, then it's like this is getting further and further apart. And every time you like say no to the trigger, like the urge, then you're rewiring your brain. And so like the relapse, this old like pattern that you used to have that was connected with the trigger really, really strongly in your brain, like these two maps like fused together, it's just going to create more and more distance every time. And eventually, if you do this enough times, the trigger keeps on coming up, and you react in the right way. You say no, you choose not to act on it, you're like creating this distance in your brain, and then the maps get so far apart that eventually these triggers no longer even create the craving that they used to crave. And this is due to like transcription factors like delta phos-B, which is in your brain on porn. And there's loads of neuroscience behind this, but honestly, this is how it works. And the problem is that 99% of people are just trying to avoid the triggers. And so their brain is still addicted, but they're doing like longer and longer streaks. So they think that they're progressing. There's this illusion of success, but it's not real. The brain's still the same. And so one book I'd really, really recommend, I read this in January this year, is The Brain That Changed Itself. This is a fantastic book I'd highly, highly recommend to learn more about rewiring the brain. And yeah, stay tuned for more content as well. Subscribe if you've liked this video. In terms of dealing with the urges as well, I personally use a very specific script, but if you're looking to just get started on that, then just go for like a pros and cons list. Now, in our program, we do teach a very, very specific method, which essentially results in you having like a specific script where you never relapse. But for now, what I'd really recommend is just a pros and cons list, so you can really think, okay, well, this is what's going to happen if I relapse. This is what's going to happen if I choose not to relapse. I want to rewire the brain. I want to disconnect these two maps in my brain. I want to be free. So let's just say no to the urges, face that discomfort, and move on with my day. If you do want more help as well, then there is free training available at www.thomasmolyneux.com. Link is in the description. Go get that free training, and I wish you an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Let's get it. This year is going to be the year that we all permanently quit porn for good. Subscribe for more. Let's get it.